Welcome, everyone, to SI Media with Jimmy Traina. Thank you so much for listening. Excellent episode for you this week. The voice of Sunday Night Football on NBC, Mike Tirico, is our guest. Of course, we have our Traina Thoughts segment with Sal Licata following the interview with Tirico. Get into a lot of topics with Mike about the wild season he's had on NBC this year. They've had a lot of, him and Chris Collinsworth have had a lot of wild games. So we get into some of that, talk about the upcoming schedule for NBC. Mike's going to be the voice of the NBA on NBC, so we touch on that. Tirico also worked many, many years with Hubie Brown. Get into that. So a lot of stuff with the great Mike Tirico. And then Traina Thoughts with Sal Licata. We get into some sports headlines, Christmas, and Sal and I went to Saturday night's main event at the Nassau Coliseum. So we give you a full breakdown of our night at the WWE show. So all that coming up. For next week, we'll have our year-end roundtable that we do every year with Peter Schrager from Good Morning Football and Andrew Perloff from the Perloff and Maggie show. So that'll be out next Thursday, day after Christmas, and we'll see what we're going to do the week after that. So we're staying on the same schedule here through the holiday, and Sal will be back in a couple of weeks as well. All right. Before we get to it, just a quick reminder, great run of guests here on the pod in recent weeks. If you've missed any of those, make sure you check them out. Sean McDonough, ESPN college football voice, other sports as well, but we did mainly college football when he was on last week. Brian Curtis from The Ringer on the Sports Media News. Kyle Brandt from Good Morning Football. Roman Reigns from the WWE. Burke Magnus, president of ESPN. All recent guests on SI Media with Jimmy Traina. So if you've missed any of those episodes, give them a listen and then subscribe if you're not a subscriber. You can also leave a review on Apple. I'll be reading those probably in 2 weeks on the pod. All right, let's get to it. Mike Tirico from NBC, followed by Sal Licata and Traina Thoughts. All right here, right now, on SI Media with Jimmy Traina. All right, joining me now, always enjoy when he pops on the SI Media podcast. He is NBC's lead voice for Sunday Night Football. He's had a great season. We'll get into it during the interview. And he is Mike Tirico. Mike, thanks for doing this. How are you?
Happy holidays, Jimmy. How are you?
Same to you. Happy holidays to you. Appreciate you doing this.
No problem.
Full disclosure for the listeners, I reached out to Mike a couple of weeks ago. He had to turn me down for a good reason. He was getting surgery for that Achilles that we saw on Sunday Night Football. So I need to know, like, how did it happen? How did you not miss any work? What's the recovery? How are you doing? What is going on with this?
Yeah, it's been an interesting few weeks for sure. And our team, our behind the scenes team at Sunday Night Football actually helped me to the point I didn't miss any games. I wish I had a great story of pickup basketball. The most likely story for somebody my age group is pickleball now, because pickleball has contributed to a lot of orthopedists' second homes and vacation homes. But it was neither. Just missed a step at home and landed awkwardly and felt it right away and got it diagnosed pretty quickly. And then it was right before stretch that we had Sunday, Thursday, Thanksgiving, and Sunday. So we had 3 games in 8 days. The fortunate quote unquote, with an Achilles is once you've ruptured it, you're pretty much not going to do any more damage. So put it in a boot, kind of got around on a knee scooter and some crutches for those 3 games. Got the surgery after the game in Buffalo in the snow on Sunday, and I'm a couple of weeks out of surgery now. So hopefully get back in the boot and start moving around a little bit.
What day of the week did this happen on?
Happened on a Monday.
Okay.
Happened on a Monday, and then traveled, I think, on Friday out to LA and did the game on Sunday. And then our group went to Green Bay, for Thanksgiving, and then Buffalo on Sunday.
Okay. So Thanksgiving was when we saw you. They showed the shot of you in the booth.
Maybe
no, that was
Sunday,
the Rams.
It was the Sunday in LA. It was the Sunday in LA. Yeah.
Got it.
So that was it. And thankfully I make a living with my mouth, not my legs. So that was good. But it is funny now when you do your prep and you come across a guy who missed a season for a knee or missed a season for an Achilles. You're like, I got it now. I understand. You have a little bit different sympathy perhaps for those guys.
Well, I mean, props to you for not missing a game. Even if it's not your voice or your mouth. I mean, just traveling alone, I would imagine, with a torn Achilles had to be a bitch.
Travel's hard, and the stadiums are hard too. Getting into the booths. There are stairs in the booth in Green Bay and stairs in the booth in Seattle where we were. last Sunday. So it's it's crutches, it's hopping up and down stairs, it's a knee scooter. It's a lot of help from our team. Our team is just great. They've helped make it possible. So we're making it through. Everybody's got their issues. Nobody cares. The show goes on, the game goes on. So hopefully it hasn't impacted us at all. The only thing it impacts me during the game is I like to stand up and call the game, and you can't stand up and call the game, so you're just a
Right.
little bit limited in that. But other than that,
Yeah.
no impact on doing the job.
Well, I can tell you this. I always, do a quick Google search for whoever's coming on the pod for research purposes. This was a big story. I mean, like like the Daily Mail picked this up, Mike, the Daily Mail.
The weird thing is, right, it happens, and I am not a poster of like, here's my entire life on social media. Like,
Right.
here's what I'm wearing today. Here's my travel through the airport. I don't post that stuff. That's for
Yeah.
people who need to do such things, and bless them for it, because it makes for interesting content for the rest of us to look at. But I
Right.
don't think you need to see me walking through an airport or
No.
what outfit I'm thinking about wearing on Sunday. So I'm not an over poster, so I didn't post anything during
Right.
the week, right?
Yeah. Yeah.
And then our PR staff, the guys are going to have some fun with me on the air on Sunday, so they're going to mention it, which is fine. And our PR staff let one of the writers who was there know, who happens to be a writer for Associated Press, Joe Reedy, really good guy. So
Yeah.
I
Yeah.
come out of the press box on Sunday in LA, and Joe's there asking me questions like it's a post game interview. I'm like, nobody cares. This is the biggest non-story ever. I just kind of sitting here and talking, but
No,
it's
people
fine.
cared. People cared.
People were super nice. People
Yeah.
reached out. A lot of our colleagues and friends reached out. So
Yeah.
it's all good, and I appreciate the concern and the interest. And it's made the last few weeks even more appreciative of what good health really means.
It's an interesting time too for that. I mean, maybe if it happens early in the season, you could maybe miss a week, but here you said you had the Thanksgiving game with the turnaround, and now again, are you double dipping this week because NBC? Okay, you're not double dipping.
We're not.
Okay.
Noah Eagle, Todd Blackledge, and Catherine Tappan are doing the Kansas City Houston game on Saturday, and we're going to do Tampa and Dallas on Sunday night. So
Gotcha.
so that makes that a little bit easier as well during the holidays. And those
Yeah.
guys did such a great job. Big Ten season again, and the playoff game that they did last year. So I look forward to watching them Saturday afternoon, and that Madden version of the game too. It's going to be on Peacock,
Mhm.
which is interesting to me because I've gotten reconnected to the Madden game, being one of the play-by-play voices on it this year. Kate Scott and Brock Heward are an alternate pair that you can have call the games, or me with Greg Olson, and Brandon Gaudin and Charles Davis have been the voices on Madden football for a bit now. So I've gotten reconnected with it, and I'm really looking forward to watching some of that as well, just to see how they overlay some of the Madden stuff with the actual game.
I want to get into some of the games you've had, and then
Yeah.
we'll look ahead because obviously we're coming
Sure.
down the stretch here. We'll get into some schedule stuff that I like to nerd out
That
on.
you
But
love.
yeah, I do. I mean, don't even get the Cowboys. We'll get into it, but yeah. Let me start with this game. Let me start with the Buffalo San Fran game.
Sure.
As a play-by-play guy, what are the challenges of calling a game in that weather?
I think the number one challenge is you're watching the yard lines a bit more closely to help the viewer because they're not visible, right? So you can put the same technology that's the overlay for the 1st and 10 line, we can put in for the big yard lines. So kind of watching that a little more closely and calling it out probably more in play-by-play than you would otherwise. Big advantage in Buffalo, low booth, maybe as good a booth as there is to working in the league, in terms of where it's located. So you could see things pretty easily. The snow wasn't heavy enough that you were obscured with any numbers. So it wasn't bad. That's the number one issue. A team with white uniforms, if it's snowing a lot, you may struggle seeing numbers or bodies, but that visibility wasn't that impacted by
Right.
it. So I think calling out the yard lines to help the viewers as much as possible is kind of where my mind goes. And just the things that are different when you're in a snow game. Actually, snow games are easier to call when it's snowing. I've only done a couple because the guys are slower. They're not running as fast. Chris made a great point during the game. guys are running a lot more basic, simple routes because they don't trust their own footing. So players are moving slower. It's actually an easier game to call as long
Interesting.
as your visibility is okay. Yeah.
Right, right. And your visibility not impacted at all in that game. You said it wasn't that bad with the snow.
No,
Because on
not
TV,
as
it looked like a full blown blizzard.
maybe if you were higher up,
Yeah.
and there are boxes that are higher up that you call a game from, it might have been a little bit, but certainly where you were in Buffalo and the amount of snow, it was not that bad. I was so excited. It's funny, just a little background story. So,
Mm.
Syracuse alum, so I've gone to school and then worked there for 3 years after in local TV. So, I spent 7 winters in lake effect snow areas, right? So, I understand the concept of why lake effect can hit here and then 10 miles away, it's different. So we knew that was a possibility, and we stayed in downtown Buffalo, and there was not a flake of snow. And the drive to Orchard Park is about 18 miles, 20 minutes or so south. And you saw it was, they had a couple of feet of snow and they got more during the game. So I'm in touch with a local meteorologist right before the game, the morning, the afternoon, then maybe about 20 minutes before we go on the air. And he's like, hey, radar looks clear. Things look good. Maybe you'll get some stuff in the second half. And then right as Chris and I start doing the open, it starts a little snow globe behind us. And when we come out of break and go back to our position to call the game, and we're getting ready to throw down to Melissa Stark on the field, like it's really starting. And then 10 minutes later, when we hit our first break, I checked my phone and the meteorologist I was dealing with, he said, snowband just started and just settling in right over the stadium, and it never stopped the whole game. So
Yeah.
it's one of those cool phenomenons, and I was loving the fact that we got a full snow game when we weren't really expecting one.
You and Chris and Melissa have had quite a little run. I looked over recent weeks, and this is not in any order, but you had the snow game in Buffalo, which every
Right.
NFL fan loves a snow game.
We all do.
You had the double doink, which we'll get into. You had Saquon, that game where he went nuts.
Nuts.
And then you had an unbelievable Detroit comeback against the Texans. I mean,
Yeah,
the stretch
right,
you had
right.
there was really, really good. And a lot's been made because it's Brady's first year, and him and Burkhardt have done nothing but blowouts almost the whole year. So, it's amazing how the luck falls that way,
And it feels like, and we've all been on crews. I remember this in college too. It's the same thing doing college games. Sometimes you feel like you get those runs where your whole season is just going to be like that. And then you get runs where you have games that look bad and they just turn out to be great games. Yeah, we've only had a couple of games this year where mid fourth quarter turns into a little bit of talk radio.
Yeah.
And you're kind of you're surfing topics around the league. So yeah, no, it's been a fun run. And you're right, I didn't even think about that Detroit comeback against Houston where Goff threw the 5 picks, but they still found a way to win the game.
That was a great
Yeah,
second
crazy.
half. Well, you
Crazy.
guys had that. I think I wrote a column after that game because that game, I mean, you had the great call on the field goal, the game winner for Bates, because you told the story about him. I don't remember working in a grocery store, doing something.
Selling bricks in Houston.
Yeah. And then you also had that great halftime moment where Dan Campbell says, Melissa, we need a turnover in the first play. And that was like perfect television right there.
And it would have been even better because obviously those interviews are right when they come out of the locker room before the second half, and you sneak them in right after the kickoff. And usually the answers are quick. Dan Campbell, one, is a little bit longer. Second, he's phenomenal TV.
Yeah.
So you want to get it in, even if you're going to run the risk of running over a play, right? Because it's going to be good. And Rob Hyland, our awesome producer, said, hey, as get it to the tape with Melissa as quick as you can. So the kickoff, I believe, was a touchback. And I was like, boom, here's Melissa a moment ago with Dan Campbell, just to get to it really quickly, right? If I would have waited actually a second or two, it would have been absolutely synced to him saying turnovers and the interception by Davis. But that worked out really well. I actually don't mind those interviews coming out of the locker room at halftime with the coaches because you kind of get a sense of going ahead to the second half. Their mind is already there, and it kind of gets you in the mode of what to look for in the second half. So if you miss a play, that's fine, but that one worked out pretty cool.
Yeah, so you had that moment, and then you did a great job with the Bates field goal. And listen, I think if you have a game, forget all that stuff. You have a game where a quarterback throws 5 picks and they win. That's notable right there. I mean, and the Lions, yeah. And then the Saquon game, 200 and something yards. So you had that had to be fun to call.
And 2 big touchdown runs that he had, and one to kind of cap the game, take him over 200, and put him in one of the top 10 rushing performances in a single game. in the history of the league, right when he was just stacking those second halves in games, and Philly was kind of making this ascension toward, joining Detroit at the top of the NFC, and let's not forget
Right.
Minnesota there either. So that was like kind of a crowning moment for everybody to see. Hey, this Saquon Barkley thing is real, and he's at that point they were rolling, and they still are. I think the NFC playoffs are going to be really fascinating with those teams that have been so good at the top of it. So yeah,
I hate
that contributes to it.
Yeah, I hate that Detroit's all banged up now.
I know.
It really Montgomery, and it started with Hutchinson way back when. But man, I would it's just such a bummer as a fan. You'd love to see them 100% end the curse and all that. I mean, maybe they still will, but after what you saw Sunday, yes, granted it's against Josh Allen, who can basically beat anyone right now. But
correct,
it's a downer that they're so banged up.
Yeah, no doubt. And living here in Michigan, people were talking last year. They said, "What do you think the Lions next year?" And I said, "Guys, like Dan Campbell said after that championship game in San Francisco, it's really hard to get back. That whole road back to where you were,
Right.
30 minutes from the Super Bowl, is a long freaking road, and it's really hard to get back there." And the one thing I always tell people is when everybody gets all gaga over predictions, and this is going to happen, injuries happen. It's just a fact of this game. And most often it's the good team that is the most whole and the most healthy that gets there at the end. Maybe not the best team. And I think you're seeing it with Detroit, and everybody has 2, 3, 4 guys hurt. The amount of people they have injured on the defensive side is a number that I have not seen for a team with that kind of record in, my 20 years of calling games, or almost 25, 27 years of hosting NFL studio and doing games. When you look at the team that we saw on the field, if I open up my chart from week 1 against the Rams and look at the front guys now, almost the entire 2 deep is injured. Almost the entire group. Like I was watching, I guess it was the Green Bay game when we got ready for the Packers last week. I was watching the Lions-Packers Thursday night game from a couple of weeks ago, and this is a team that we have had multiple times this year, playoffs last year. Living here, I see them on a regular basis. And there were a couple of guys who go, who's that? What number is he? And I don't do that with that team. I know them pretty cold. So that just tells you right there how deep into the depths of the roster they are. And maybe the fact that they're still Jimmy 12-2 and still sitting at the number 1 seed as we discussed right now, that might be more impressive than anything else that they've done to this point.
Yeah, it's going to be interesting to see how they finish.
Yeah,
these last few weeks, and then the other game you mentioned it. People loved double doink.
Doink for the division. Collinsworth owns double doink.
Okay, double doink.
He owns double
doink for the division.
From the
doink for the division.
Yeah.
Right.
He owns double doink from the Eagles Bears playoff
doink
game.
Doink for the
Cody
division.
Parkey, and Kansas City was doink for the division, which I guess turned into a T-shirt in Kansas City, because you figure after you've won 9 straight division championships, you're not really selling a lot of merch for, hey, we're AFC West champs, right? So at least it turned into something else.
Where's your cut? Where's your cut?
I know. I'm looking for. I'll just take a T-shirt to work out in at some point when I get back to workout condition. But that was a wild game, and that's like a credit your partner, right? Chris. They're walking in, they get to this short field goal, and you're thinking, game over, it's a short field goal. How many good field goal kickers have we seen this year? And the whole time, Chris kept saying, just going to say, it's a 3rd-string kicker. It's a lot of pressure. It's a little different. He just threw enough out there to keep it suspenseful, and banged it off the upright. And fortunately, it goes in. That's always a weird one to call, because you can't see live which side of the crossbar it crosses on. So you got to rely on one of 2 things. The official right underneath that crossbar, who's the one who's going to be calling it, or the fans right behind, right? So we've had enough balls hit off the crossbar and not come right back at you that I kind of take my eyes right there and just got a little bit of a heads up that it was in before you got both officials recognizing it. So it was a fun moment, and neat way for them to close out the division title for sure.
All right, let me tell you guys about Underdog. Underdog is the place to play if you're a sports fan looking to win money while watching sports. With over 5 million happy players and $2 billion won, Underdog makes it fun and easy to cash in on all your favorite athletes' performances. Just call your shot by picking higher or lower on two or more player stats. Underdog is for everyone, so you can make a play with only $1 or go big and win up to 1,000 times your money. So turn every touchdown into a win with Underdog. Do you think Patrick Mahomes will rack up higher than 300 yards next week? That Mahomes will get lower than 300 yards next week? Cook up some entries for shot to win, real cash prizes, all NFL season long. Underdog also offers you vulture protection. Yes, that's right. If you select a designated running back to score a touchdown in your pick'em entry and that running back gets vultured, Underdog will rescue your entry. Also, there's tons of promos Underdog is offering. Underdog is the best place to play pick'em, so sign up and deposit now using the code Sports Illustrated to get up to $1,000 in bonus cash instantly. Underdog's offering profit boost, discounts, and free picks as well. What I love about Underdog is two things. Well, plenty of things, but the two best: easy to use, great interface, simple, and then I just love the action, higher or lower. You don't have to worry about digging deep into doing research for this, that. It's higher or lower on stats. Patrick Mahomes passing yards, Christian McCaffrey rushing yards, Justin Jefferson receiving yards. Higher or lower. That's it. Fun and simple. And then, of course, great bonuses from Underdog. Download the app today and use the code Sports Illustrated to get up to $1,000 in bonus cash instantly. Again, download the app today. Use the code Sports Illustrated to get up to $1,000 in bonus cash instantly. Must be 18 or older, 19 or older in Alabama, Nebraska, and Colorado for some games, 21 and older in Massachusetts and Arizona, and present in a state where Underdog Fantasy operates. Terms apply. Void in Colorado. Concerned with your play? Call 1-800-GAMBLER or visit www.ncpgambling.org. In Arizona, you can call 1-800-NEXT-STEP or text NEXT STEP to 53342. In New York, call the 24/7 Hope line at 1-877-8-HOPE-NY or text HOPE-NY 467-369. You know, we talked about the Lions a little bit. The Chiefs, to me, are still, for me, the most fascinating team because now you have everybody dumping on them all season about they're not playing well, Mahomes, and they just keep winning. So I can't wait to see what they do in the postseason.
Jimmy, they're great TV because not only do you have the biggest stars, right, in Patrick, Travis, etc. Not only do you have guys you've like now seen on such a regular basis that they've kind of come to that cowboy level of national team. Like you put them on and people are going to watch no matter what. They play entertaining games. Their games are close. Their games are tight.
Absolutely.
You're sitting on the edge of your seat with almost every one of their games. So on top of all of it, they're giving you not just big names, but great games, tight games as well. And you're right. It's going to be fascinating to see if they play these close games against really good teams in the playoffs. Is that margin for error different? And that's where I would say the schedule kind of helps a little bit by playing Houston and Pittsburgh, two playoff teams, two division leaders here in the last two of the last three games. You'll get a fine tuning, perhaps, of the Chiefs as you go into the playoffs. And the Chiefs with a week off and at Arrowhead are still a hard team to bet against, getting all the way there for yet another for fourth time in 5 years, which is crazy.
Yeah, you guys are set up. We don't know what playoff games you'll have, obviously, but
right,
you could be set up for another epic Buffalo, Kansas City.
Good.
I think the NFC is a little more wide open. I'd be a little surprised in the AFC if, I don't know, I know Pittsburgh is there, Baltimore is there, but I mean, Buffalo looks unstoppable, obviously. And then obviously you have, and I'm saying obviously way too much. And then you have, the Chiefs, who I would never, ever, ever count out. I mean, Patrick Mahomes, you don't do it. Be careful.
Right, exactly. Well, you nailed it, Jimmy. We think about, you mentioned the game in Buffalo with the snow, right? And I know the Bills lost a playoff game last year, or last couple of years, really, at home a couple of times over the last few years, I should say. The Chiefs went on the road last year and made it to the Super Bowl. So we may be overvaluing this. However, when you start to look at the other teams in the playoffs, which will be Pittsburgh, Houston, Baltimore in all likelihood. Denver and the Chargers or some other team if one of those last two teams stumble. Who's going to go to Buffalo and win? Who's going to go to Kansas City and win? I think those are the questions that are, kind of sitting out there as you handicap the AFC when you say, if not those two teams, then who? So you're right. If you lay that out, and I love Pittsburgh. I love what Mike's done this year. He handled the Fields to Wilson thing almost perfectly.
Yep.
The edge rushers have not been at full speed because of some injuries, yet they've worked out. Joey Porter's come along at corner. Minka Fitzpatrick back at a deep safety, been very effective. They've done a really good. Mike's done a tremendous job again.
Yeah.
Baltimore's weird because Baltimore feels like a championship caliber team that just has lost far too many games for a championship caliber team.
Yeah, their defense, I think, is just too big of a problem.
Exactly. Now, how many times have we seen a team piece it together defensively the last 4 or 5 games, right? So does that happen for them? And then, maybe this is the year that Lamar has one of those superhuman games in the playoffs, which we have not seen from him, over the majority of his career, save for one playoff game. So maybe this is the year that he does that. And yes, then if Kansas City is not hitting on all cylinders, they could go into KC. So Pittsburgh and Baltimore feel like those better teams in the AFC after those two. And to see those two teams go on the road, they can beat anybody.
Right.
They can beat anybody anywhere. And that would be a really great, no disrespect to Houston. And let's see Houston against Kansas City this week and see how they do these couple of weeks with Baltimore on Christmas Day also. But Pittsburgh or Baltimore going to Kansas City or Buffalo would be really intriguing games to see who gets to the AFC Championship game. And games you could say those teams will give Buffalo and Kansas City everything they want.
Absolutely. All right, we look back. Let me look ahead and do some schedule stuff, and then I want to just get into the NBA and Hubie Brown a little bit.
Great.
So this week you're going to do Tampa Bay at Dallas. Now it caused a little brouhaha here because I had Joe Buck on, I don't know, maybe a month ago or so.
Yes.
And I said, it's enough with the Cowboys.
Right.
It's not. I understand America's team and I understand the ratings. They're an awful watch. They're a little better now. At that time, they were an awful watch.
Correct.
And Joe said, we'll never flex out of the Cowboys because of the ratings. And then our friend Chris Mad Dog Russo got wind of that and it ripped Joe Buck on the rating. He goes, I love Joe Buck, and then rips him to shreds, saying, So it was. And then I spoke to some people in the NFL and some other people in the business, and everyone across the board said, basically, the Cowboys are never going to be flexed. They could be 0-16. They're not going to be flexed in any year, it seems like, because of the ratings. So do you like that do you like that you're would you rather call Houston, Kansas City instead of Tampa Bay, Dallas this week?
Oh, no.
Tough question, I know.
Not particularly, and here's why. First, given the times, you'd rather stay with the Sunday night game. That's our window, right? You'd rather stay in our normal spot on Sunday night at the end of the week. Having seen those teams a bunch of times, I'm excited to see Tampa. But I think if Tampa's not in this game, it's a different conversation. Also, when you look at the week, it's a thin week.
Right.
And there have been more of those this year than in other years. It's one of the reasons we have so many playoff spots locked up or darn close to locked up with still 3 weeks left in the season. The middle class of the NFL has not been there this year. There are a lot of bad teams. And, you add to that, why does it feel like some of these windows are really thin? The New York market is unwatchable. Chicago's unwatchable. New England's unwatchable. So we've taken some big cities and flagship franchises, the Jets, the Giants, the Patriots, the Bears, and they have not had good seasons. I mean, combined probably 10 wins amongst those 4 teams. Maybe it's 11. But that has not been good football. That hurts the product. It hurts the overall schedule of where you can move games, even in the late afternoon window at 4:25. So that's a long way of saying, Tampa in the division lead and a game or two from winning a playoff spot in the division is a pretty good match going to Dallas, where Dallas is playing better. Now, if Dallas would have gone straight downhill, that would be one thing. If not for Amani Oruwariye with the Leon like play at the end of that Cincinnati game, Dallas would be on a 4-game win streak, right?
Right.
Competition aside,
Right.
this was the soft part of their schedule, and they've mostly handled it. I actually give Mike McCarthy credit for the guy's not tanking, the guy's still playing hard, the defense improving, Dowdle running very well behind what wasn't offensive line number one going into this season. But to your bigger point, when the Cowboys stop showing that they have a bigger following than every other
Right.
team, then it becomes more of a conversation. We all like to see good games. Would America rather see Seattle, Minnesota in the 4:05 window, kind of isolated this week? Would they rather see that or Tampa Bay, Dallas? And we could sit here all we want and talk about what we think might be a
Right.
better football game.
Right.
There's 19 or 20 million people who will vote with their eyes and their remotes
Right.
that this game is the one they want to see. So until people get so sick of Dallas that even the ardent Cowboy fans who follow them in every market stop following them, then you're going to continue to see Dallas in these windows and not flexed out.
Right. Well, and Joe and the NFL were proven right because the rating for the Cowboy Bengal game was significant.
Yes. So. It was good, and who knows what part of that was all the other stuff, right? With the Simpsons and everything else, and the Manning cast and Collinsworth on the Manning cast. I give Chris all the credit for being on the Manning cast that week.
Oh, we'll get into that. Let me just stay with this, then we'll do that next. So week 17, they flexed that and they gave you the Falcons and the Commanders.
Correct.
Now, see, here's where I would say that's a great move because even though the Falcons are terrible, I think Jaden Daniels is a guy that should be on primetime as much as possible. Is this your first Commanders game this season?
We had them in the preseason, but did not have Daniels. We actually met with him, which is rare, but he was the story going in. It was the last preseason game, so Dan Quinn sat most of his starters. But it was kind of a good way to see him. Now, we saw him and talked to him before week one, got a great sense of what he's all about, watch him practice. And now we'll get him here at the back end. And with the Atlanta making the quarterback change, depending on what happens with them this week,
that's actually
it'll be Michael Penix. It'll be two rookie quarterbacks for two teams ostensibly in the playoff race, if not with a berth. If Washington has some stuff happen, the likelihood if Philly as favored beats Washington, who knows? Big if.
Right.
You may have Washington playing at home to get into the playoffs.
Right.
Which would be a pretty cool scene.
Great scene.
Be a great scene and great for those fans. Remember they did make the playoffs. It's not like it's been a drought like the Jets. They made the playoffs in the 2020 season, in the COVID season, because I called their playoff game against Tom Brady from one floor below here. I had COVID and called the game from home with Tony Dungy in the booth at what was then FedEx Field.
Right.
So and that was the Taylor Heineke quarterback game. That they were in. So they've been in the playoffs and won the division, albeit with a losing record that year. So it's not like it's been a huge drought, but it feels different because of Daniels and the new ownership and all that stuff.
I don't know why, but whenever someone mentions the COVID season, and you just mentioned the Commanders, but the first thing I think of was when they played the Steelers on, was it Tuesday or a Wednesday afternoon? It was like the first time ever there was a Tuesday or Wednesday, or the second time ever.
Well, let me correct myself because they may have been the Washington football team for that game. They were the Washington football team for that game. So correct myself there. We did a Wednesday afternoon Steeler-Raven game.
Ravens. Why don't I remember that?
I was with Chris. The game was in Pittsburgh.
Oh, I think. Yeah.
Jimmy, that was the weirdest thing. That was supposed to be a Thanksgiving night game, and I was going to do that game with Chris. And we were in our production meeting, and we were talking to Lamar Jackson by phone, and that's when we found out the game was getting postponed because there were 20 some odd guys at the Ravens with COVID. And the game was in Pittsburgh, live in Michigan. I called my wife. I said, "Did you buy a big enough turkey?" She said, "What?" I said, I think I'm coming home for Thanksgiving because this game's getting canceled.
Right.
Came home, did Thanksgiving, did a game in Green Bay a few days later. But they pushed the game, moved the game, and to get people out of the window of COVID, we did a Wednesday game that started at something like 3:30 in the afternoon.
Yeah.
Because when we got done, maybe it was 4:30, it went right to the Rockefeller Center Christmas tree lighted. So it was just one of the oddest games. And really, in that game, I'll never forget this. We were in the press box just to remember how weird this was a few years ago. And we were still figuring out who was playing for the Ravens. And there were guys, we were crossing guys off our board and adding guys during warmups. It was one of the most weird, odd, bizarre games.
I can imagine.
Robert Griffin III played quarterback in that game, and Trace McSorley finished the
Oh
game
my
for
God.
the Ravens. It was like the craziest of crazy games. But
Yeah.
that was a Wednesday afternoon. That's my only Wednesday in my career.
And the other thing I remember, since we're on the COVID memory lane, is the first time you were ever supposed to be on this podcast with me, we were about to tape, and I think 5 or 10 minutes before we were about to tape, I found out my brother had COVID.
Oh, is
and
that
I
right?
freaked out, and we postponed. All right, back to the schedule. Week 18,
Yes.
we don't know what your game is yet. I think these are the possibilities. Tell me what you think. KC, Denver.
Possible, sure. Yeah.
Minnesota, Detroit.
Mm-hmm.
Seahawks, Rams.
Yep.
And if they can still get through these next 2 weeks, Bengals, Steelers. We'll see what Cincinnati can do there.
Right.
Give me a prediction. What do you think? What do you think week 18?
I've been feeling the NFC West for the last few weeks, but now with the Lions injuries, that Minnesota-Detroit game could be for the 1 or the 5 seed, right, for the division,
right?
Which would be really fascinating. Who knows, number 1 seed overall? Maybe it's the 2 or the 5, depending on what happens. Both teams have some tough games along the way. So I've been feeling NFC West the whole time, but it might break out to NFC North. Is there somebody for SI.com who every week writes a column on forecasting the Week 18 game?
I believe, I don't know if it's weekly, but I have a colleague of mine, Mitch Goldich. I think before the season,
that's what
he predicts it.
I saw that.
Yes.
I saw that maybe week 1, and I was laughing. I'm like, this is
he's been doing it for years. He's been doing it for years. Yeah,
that's pretty funny. Well, I hope we dust that off and do that. It's funny, Jimmy. I mean, you do it because you're a scheduled nerd, self-admitted. I'm not insulting you, I hope, when I say that.
No, not at all. Not at all.
We do it because it affects our lives, right? Where we're going, who you want to keep an eye on the last couple of weeks, so you're not starting from scratch. You hope it's a team that you've had before or one that you'll see in the playoffs. But I try not to emotionally invest. Where are we going to be? What's going to happen? How's this going to play out? And you get suckered in every year. Every year you're looking, going, well, if this happens, then this happens, then this happens. Could that be a standalone game? And then, some of the things I'm thinking about this year with that is, will it be because so many playoff spots will be decided? That's
why I think I don't mean to cut you off. That's why I think if the Bengals can win their next 2 games, if they're in a win and in situation against Pittsburgh, who might have things locked up. So they
might.
The reason I'm a schedule nerd, what I like about it is there's 2 things. Obviously, I want to watch the best games. I want to watch the best players. And I don't want to watch the teams that are unwatchable. I mean, for the NFL and ESPN to give us Atlanta and Raiders on Monday, I can't watch the Raiders. I can't physically sit there and watch the Raiders. I can't do it. Burrow, that's why I'm hoping if they win these 2 games, I would love to see what Burrow would do in Week 18 at Pittsburgh. I think
they're a great watch. I've loved the Hard Knocks on the division, the in-season Hard Knocks division.
Yeah.
It's been great every Tuesday night. I look forward to it. It's perfect night, too. It's after Monday Night Football before 100%. You get to next week. So I've really loved, and the NFL Films guys crush it. And there's such good characters in that division, too, on each team. It's been a
Tomlin could have his own show.
Mike's the best. I hope they do the NFC North next year, because I think
Campbell.
Not just Campbell and Detroit, but Green Bay is so good. Established quarterback, established team. I'm a big fan of LaFleur. Kevin O'Connell's terrific. He's good, and there's always great energy around Minnesota. And the way the NFC North is just so tight. I've always joked for the quarter century I've lived up in these parts that it feels like if there's an NFC North game on, it's like a regional duty that you have to watch. Like, you have to watch the Bears and the Vikings if you live in Wisconsin or Michigan, just because, right? It's got that same feel like the AFC North is a very parochial, they belong to us feel to all the franchises.
Mm-hmm.
And I think that builds a lot of storylines with the teams. But when you go through the parlor game of all of this, Cincinnati, I believe, still leads the league in average points scored in their losses.
Right.
They've scored over 30, somewhere close to a record number of times in losses. So they always give you good TV. And just Pittsburgh and Cincinnati over the years, that would be intriguing if Cincinnati was able to keep themselves in it all the way through. But that Rams Seattle game may be for the division, and the
Right.
Minnesota Detroit game may be for the division as well. So
Yeah.
Jimmy, I would love. I think I may have said this with you before.
Hmm.
I would love if the league could find a way to pivot so that the last Thanksgiving on, the last 5 weeks of the season was scheduled like the Premier League, where we know the matchups, but we have no designation. And maybe in November 1st, you start designating some of the windows, like the Thursdays, or maybe you have to do Thursday all the way out. I understand that. But you
Yeah.
start designating the Monday windows and the Sunday windows. And as you get closer, you do like we just saw this week for week 17, where we say, okay, there's a pool of games here. 3 of them will be on NFL Network on Saturday. One and the other 2 will be slotted in somewhere. I just think teams flip so quick from really good team to bad team, or an injury changes a team. It would be best not just for the network partners, which is our concern, but
Right.
it would be best for the fans because you'd get the best games in those standalone windows. We don't mind and understand that you're going to get some games at 1 or 4 o'clock that are not the best games. But in the 4:25 window, the Sunday night window, and the Monday night window, if you get a dog, if you get a bad game, it's not good for the momentum of the season. So I
Right.
really wish that they could come about and do something to make that real.
It's one of the best ideas I've heard, and it absolutely would make sense to do it for the fans and the networks. I mean, CBS has gotten so royally screwed here these last few weeks, and then they're left with nothing because they took these 2 games and sold them. You guys have one, and Fox has the other on Saturday. And the 5, you take out the Bills, they're the 4 best teams in the AFC, and then those teams have to play on Christmas, and of course those games are on Netflix. So if you're
Right.
Jim Nantz and Tony Romo, you're probably like, WTF. But that's the way it breaks because
But
it's all about.
they had the great Buffalo Detroit game last week,
Yeah.
and they had Kansas City Buffalo earlier on, which has been as good as any game this year. So we all know that 2 things happen. One, it evens out, and secondly, and maybe more importantly, the best matchups sometimes don't become the best games. If
Right.
you would have told
Right.
me that San Francisco Dallas this year would have been one of our least memorable games of the season, like there's no way. There's no
Right.
way. But both of those teams, that's a potential NFC Championship preview. And right now, the likelihood is that neither one of those teams makes the playoffs. That's why it would really benefit everybody to just kind of put placeholders in. You're going to play week 16. We're going to figure it out. And Thursdays, you have to schedule out a little bit
Yeah. Yeah.
because of rest. So I'll take
Yeah.
the Thursdays out of the mix. But to slide it, we've slid the game from Sunday to a Monday last year. Games slide around in the Sunday slot. Very sensitive to the fans, so you want to give them a little lead time. So you have 3-4 weeks to plan early game or late game or night game, because I know that's disruptive. I've seen that firsthand where it's disruptive as the time changes on a game. But I just think it would be the easiest thing to do in a league that's less predictable than ever when you're sitting around doing the schedule in March and April, which
Yeah.
Mike North and Ani Bose and all those guys who learned from Howard Katz, they've turned this into a really good science where we get great games in most of the good windows.
Yeah.
This could just be a way to make it a tweak better.
Absolutely. You mentioned it earlier. Your partner, Chris Collinsworth, did the Manning cast for the Cowboys-Bengals game, and revealed that he gave the backstory on the slide and said that, and he told the whole story about how he would be leaning, and it was because Al had it in his contract that he gets to be solo for the first minute of the broadcast. Yeah. Do you have any perks like that in your contract?
I don't. I get sparkling water, but it's not in my contract. No, we've opened up games with me on a single. When I did Monday night, I would open up on a single shot and set the story. When I started working with John with Gruden, and it was just 2 of us, my approach to it, and Jay Rothman, our producer, was right on board with me on this one. Like, let's just you're gonna be with the 2 of us 3.5 hours, so let's start the 2 of us together. And it just kind of keeps the ship going quicker, and it's just what I prefer to start the game. But if there's a situation where there's something that's heavy or a big deal or something that I've got to take 25 seconds at the start. We haven't done it this year, but in each of the last 2 years we have, where I'll open up on a single, just say, nobody gives a crap. Nobody at home
Right.
cares, right?
Oh,
So
right.
that really the reason. And the Colorado slide is fun and it's cool. We
Right.
joke about, hey, can we get it back in for this or that or something like that? But it's just practical. You're going to spend the next
Yeah.
3.5 hours with the two of us, so we're a team. So let's do it together and get going.
I
That's
I
where I
just
come
think
down
it's
on that.
so I just think it's so badass that Al had that in his contract. That's what I think. I love that.
That's good for
Um,
him.
the NBA.
Yes.
You're going to be the lead voice for NBC once they start airing the NBA next season. I want to ask you about Hubie before we get to
Okay.
Hubie.
Yeah.
On doing the games, it's exploded in the past, I guess, I don't know, week to 10 days about the sagging ratings and the problems and why and the 3-point and this and that and the other.
Right.
What's your take on all that as someone who's obviously following the NBA closely?
Right. I have not dug into the demographics, the ratings, the what the impact is. I think you're kind of going through a little transitional phase here in the league right now when you look at it. Giannis is as bright a star as there is, and I loved after the Emirates Cup final in Vegas what he had to say about the why and the how. And I think a little bit of that is that natural ebb and flow of okay, that LeBron era, if you will, and he really spanned a couple of eras and decades there. As that kind of winds down, what are the next stories? And are the players on Oklahoma City, best team in the West right now, and Milwaukee, are they those national stars as individuals that brings attention to them? The guys in Boston, the Philadelphia story. New York has now traded, so some of their characters have moved around a little bit, right? Yeah, you look at Jokic in Denver. You've got your best stars in Denver and Milwaukee and Oklahoma City and SGA. So there's a little bit of establishing, I think, of those guys with those teams and those franchises and what they're about. I think the style of play is fun. I mean, I remember I remember maybe the first year we did the finals at ABC in 2003. The Nets were playing the Spurs, and like the halftime scores were 39-35. And then I'm asking David Stern during the finals when it's the Nets and Spurs about, David, are you concerned with the lack of points and what's going on? And David, God rest his soul, the late great David Stern always challenged all of us. Are you asking me about the ratings on your network? It just kind of threw it right back at us, right?
Right.
So now we've gone from that plotting defensive, nobody can make a basket, leading scorer has 9 points at the half ball, to a free flow where there's shots and threes, and the Celtics take 53s in a game. So the style of play, I was talking to somebody about this weekend, the style of play kind of comes back down to defense, half court, less threes in the playoffs when the games matter, right? So I think it's a combination of embrace the style, maybe adjust to more winning basketball, but also rebuild some of these stars and their places in the league. And I think that's something that NBC did very well in the NBA on NBC days. I think it's something we do with Sunday Night Football. I think it's something we do really well in telling the stories of the athletes in our Olympic coverage. I always think it's the DNA of the network that has the Olympics, that storytelling is front and center. And hopefully we can bring some of that. And I think the windows are going to be great. Having the NBA on network TV every Tuesday night is going to kind of establish more of kind of elevating these stars in a little broader audience than, hey, if you go watch the NBA every week, they're in the same spot on ESPN or on Turner. Not that there's anything but good about that, but I think being in a regular basis, primetime, Tuesday night, promoted during the NFL games. Hey, there's an NBA game on Tuesday night. I think that will help a little bit here as we go through the next couple of years with the league.
The only problem with that is you have to make sure the stars play in those games, because I think one of the contributing factors here is that stars don't want to play that much anymore.
But most of them have played this year. You kind of go.
Yeah.
There's not been a lot of maintenance checks here this year, and Adam Silver's been on that and been aggressive in addressing that, and I think that'll continue to be a story to watch, no doubt. But I'm excited to get back into it. It's been a while. I did from '03 to '16, so I did 14 seasons of the NBA and had a
Wow.
lot of fun. I'm looking forward to getting back courtside and doing those games.
Do you know yet who your analyst is going to be? Do you like to
Not
break
yet.
some
I
news
know
here?
our guys. I'd love to if I knew. I'd tell you, but I'd have to take away your Zoom license.
A lot of Dwayne Wade rumblings. A lot of Dwayne Wade rumblings.
D Wade was fabulous with Noah. He was really, really good with Noah. But I don't know where we are on all that just yet. So look, I know that Noah and I will be there, and whoever works with us gets to work with a short guy from Syracuse. So hopefully they can handle that, and they can tell the difference between us.
And we had Charles Barkley this morning telling Dan Patrick that he's not sure if he's going to accept this ESPN deal, and he's talking to Amazon and NBC. So maybe it'll be you and Charles.
We should all go through 1 week of our life like Charles, with the ability to say whatever we want, whenever we want. He's the best. He's the best.
Yeah. He is retired, unretired, and joined networks.
Everything.
And oh my God,
I was watching a little bit of the golf on I guess it was last night, Tuesday night, as we talk here. And Charles was kind of telling everybody the problems with the PGA Tour and live, and he's right. He's the best.
Yeah.
I adore Charles. Been friends with him for a while, and whether we work with him or don't work with him, I love being around him and getting to see him a little bit more, being back in hoops.
You mentioned doing the NBA for 14 years. I know you did a lot of that with Hubie Brown.
Yes.
And we just got word of his last game. We were going to end on that, but I just thought of something while I have you here, because I had Sean McDonough on last week.
Yeah.
And he told a story about after the ACC championship game he called between Clemson and SMU, he got a text that moved him a little bit from Vern Lundquist. Obviously, college football, you get a text from Vern. That's meaningful. Give me, if you have anything where do colleagues text you after a game? Are you texting colleagues after a game? Because he said, maybe there's a little competition, but overall, everyone's really rooting for each other. Give me after a game. When you did division for the doink, does someone text you in the business?
I have no nice things to say about miserable McDonough, because I texted him after the ACC championship game, and he didn't mention it in you. He mentioned Vern, but he didn't mention me. Right. No, right. Sean and I have been friends for 30 some odd years. One of my first days at Syracuse at the college radio station, I didn't know who Sean was. He didn't know who I was. Sean got a job at TV 38, the superstation in Boston, and was leaving Syracuse. And the guys in the sports department helped move Sean out of his apartment, and I helped load a couple of boxes. Didn't know him. He didn't know me, and that was the start of us getting to know each other. I've known Sean since 1984, almost 40 years now, and I love him to death. And he'll text me from time to time after a game. I'll text him. I'd say I've exchanged text messages with almost everybody who calls NFL games. I'll text Herbie, Fowler when I'm watching them on Saturday nights. We're all friends. I mean, I consider most of those. If you run through the, Adam Amin, Kenny Albert, Ian, obviously, because we've been so close over the years. Dave Pash, who obviously does college football and does the Cardinals. Dan Horde, who's the radio voice of the Bengals. Like we text each other, on a regular basis. Probably not a week goes. Usually, Jimmy, on Tuesdays and Wednesdays, I'll watch the last game from a team, and I'll shoot a text to Joe Davis and Greg Olson. Just like, hey guys, I really enjoyed listening to your game. And it's true. Burkhardt, I've texted with Kevin a bunch this year, and Tom about their games. It's not like any big secrets, but I think this job, and I've done it now for a while, I think the job of play-by-play is being done at a higher level than it's ever been done, because there are more elements in games, more production elements, more nuances with rules and different things like that. A higher standard based on media critics, people in your shoes, people on social media. And by and large, almost every time you turn on a game, you get a good broadcast.
The NFL is pretty deep with play-by-play, I will say. And I think also college. I mean, I've always said this. I think ESPN's college football roster is really good. But NFL is pretty deep. It's pretty deep. It's pretty deep.
You get Kevin Harlan on a game, or you get Spiro Ditas. I just want to listen to Spiro and Adam Archuleta doing I think the Denver Colts game,
Yeah.
watching a little bit of that. So you go all the way through, and everybody's on top of it. Everybody knows the stakes are so high, the investment's so high. There are so many viewers, and I'm really proud to be part of an industry that is just so one done at such a high level right now. But I think most of us have an appreciation and a respect and are rooting for the other guys who are in those seats. And Beth Mowins has done some games. So the other people in those chairs, like, you want everybody to have a good game. And when you do hear somebody do something that's really special, you reach out. I reached out to Sean after that game, but obviously it had no impact on him.
Vern.
So
Vern. All I can think about though in your answer was, do you have Brady's direct number?
I can't reveal that, Jimmy.
Oh, look at that! You got Brady. That's Don't lose your phone.
I can't
don't lose your phone,
Jimmy. I can't say yes or no to that. So.
Don't lose your phone if you got Tom's number in there. All right. So like I said earlier, so we found out this week, Hubie Brown, his last game is going to be February 9th, Super Bowl Sunday, 2:00. He's got a game.
Yep.
It's the only game he's doing this year, 91 years old. He's gone through some personal tragedies this year. There's really no other way to sum it up. So rough time for Hubie. ESPN's going to give him that one last game. How many? I know you did a lot of years with Hubie. How many years did you do with Hubie? Do you know off the top of your head?
10 years. 10
Wow.
years, I would guess, including doing 4 or 5 years of the conference finals and the finals on ESPN radio.
Wow.
If I threw it together in a number, I would probably say we've done somewhere around 300 games together. And
tell me, go ahead.
Sure. I was going to say, we talked for about 45 minutes on the phone yesterday. Every few weeks or so, I get a chance to talk to Hubie on the phone, and I love that man as much as anybody I've ever worked with. If
you can reveal this, you don't have to feel. How's he doing? Is he okay?
So,
is he?
Yeah, he's a resilient, sharp, inspirational, incredibly lovable person. He's doing the best anybody can give him, given circumstances around life that deal you a bad deck of cards, losing people close to you in your family. Traveling with Hubie was the best.
I wanted a story. I wanted a Hubie story.
I love it. So I can give you this story. So we had a game in Atlanta this year, and Chris, Rob Hyland, our producer, Drew Esikoff, our director, Greg Hughes, who runs communications, PR for NBC, who had worked for Turner, so he'd worked with Hubie for a long time. We were in Atlanta for the Chiefs Atlanta game, and on Friday night, we all went to dinner with Hubie, and it was the best. I was almost point guard trying to queue up Hubie's best stories and just have the guys listen to some of Hubie's best stories that I got to hear over and over, and you almost would hope that you'd get that story. Like, I've talked to Dave Pash and Mike Breen about that, because they've also had the opportunity to do so many games with Hubie. Mike did the finals a couple of times, and Dave really did this last run at ESPN with Hube. And you just love hearing the stories about Oscar Robertson and about Kareem and about Hubie playing baseball when he was in the service. And you got a guy who has spanned from watching Oscar Robertson to watching Victor Wembanyama. I mean, think about that. And the stories of Chuck Daly, when he and Chuck Daly were the assistant coaches at Duke for Vic Bubas, and the trips that he took with Dr. Jack Ramsey overseas to teach basketball that led to the Dream Team, led to the international basketball that has really been the foundation upon which this incredible popularity of the game globally. Those guys going to all these clinics were a part of that. So Hubie is as special a person as I've ever gotten to know, work or not. He's an unbelievable friend. I'm only disappointed that his last broadcast is going to be on Super Bowl Sunday, because I want it on a day when nothing else is going on. Yeah, and I want him to have everybody's attention. I want everybody to be tied. Now, that afternoon, you're at Super Bowl parties, stuff's going on, and
traveling,
all that stuff. ESPN folks and programming are smart. They pick Milwaukee, which is perfect, and it's the Sunday afternoon window, and nothing else is going on, and that's good. I just want Hubie to have a stage one where everybody can just pay full attention to one of the great careers, one of the great people. And I just wish I could be there after he was done with the game to give him a hug and spend time with him. He is he's one of a kind, Jimmy, and he is as entertaining off the air and as educational about basketball and the history of the sport as he is anything. And like the first question he'll always ask, so tell me, we'll talk on the phone. Tell me about Mahomes. Hey, and tell me about Kelsey. Tell me about the tight end. Is he? But because he's a really good guy. Like, tell me about Andy Reid. Like the fascination of football coaches for Hubie was always like, tell me about the practice and how they organize their week, because those guys are so organized. Like it's a constant conversation. And we were talking yesterday for about 10 minutes about Cooper Flagg, the freshman at Duke. Like, Hugh, have you seen him yet? What do you think? We were talking about why the SEC basketball has gotten so good and the ACC is not as good as it once was. So we were like, you just pick up where you left off, having a sports conversation with your best friend. And God, I love that man. And I was blessed to work with like 100 Hall of Fame people at ESPN. I don't say that lightly. Berman, Moore, Tom Jackson, Theismann, everybody in the football world, everybody in the basketball world, Vital, all the tennis analysts like McEnroe and Chrissy Everett and all the golf analysts, everybody, all the Sports Center anchors. Like, there are 100 people I've worked with at ESPN who I could say were like Hall of Fame level people. None of them are Hubie. And he was the best. That's the biggest blessing of my time there, for sure. And I will salute him. I will salute him on that Super Bowl night, and then enjoy our phone conversations for hopefully many years to come.
Hell of a run for Hubie. Hell of a. Could you see yourself doing this at 91?
Not a chance. Not a chance. I'm just trying to get to our first playoff game, to week 21 this year, with an Achilles intact. I can't, but it's been a genuine love, and it's kept him fresh. And the great thing when you watch him, Jimmy, last year, he's sharp as hell.
Oh my God, it's unbelievable. It's actually
70, 60, let alone 90 and 91.
It's an underrated sports media story. People like me should be more on top. We should have been more on top of how sharp he still was at that age,
And doing it and wanting to do it. And the thing, I'll let you run here, Jim. The thing that's so cool is when you did games, the players' respect for Hubie. Like watching Shaq come over to Hubie. Watching Kobe during the playoffs come over to Hubie, watching LeBron come over and talk to Hubie. It's a private conversation that Hubie wouldn't share. Guys watching coaches during the finals, doing a radio interview with the coach, and then we turn the recorder off, and then the coach would be asking Hubie about stuff, and I'm like trying to slip out, like, no, you're fine, you're okay. And they're asking, like, hey, what do you think? The respect level for him throughout the NBA was the damnedest thing I've ever seen. And it was all earned. And I'm so glad people got to see that and see a guy who did it the right way all the time.
Yeah. It never lost a step. It was just an unbelievable career.
The best.
Appreciate you doing this, especially, banged up. Get well soon. Enjoy the last few weeks in the playoffs. And hopefully we get that Achilles all fixed up.
Be a sub 5 second 40 at the combine. Well, maybe not, but we'll get back to it soon. Thanks, Jimmy. Great to visit with you. Happy holidays.
Appreciate it. Happy holidays to you. Take care. Enjoy the rest of the season.
Christmas.
Okay. Thanks. All right. Joining me now, as he does every week, for our Traina Thoughts segment from WFAN Radio in New York, SNY TV in New York, my buddy Sal Licata. Sal, how's it going?
Great. How are you? I'm excited for the holiday weekend.
The holidays are coming. I'm excited too. It's great time of year for the football, college, and NFL, and a lot of betting to be done.
When do the college football playoffs start?
Friday night is the first game.
Okay. So
now listen, let me just say this. I don't even remember this because a lot of times when I do this podcast, my brain is like in a different place when it's over. And I don't remember what took place, but you got a lot of shit last week because you didn't know anything about the college football playoff. I think people have to understand that on the fan, you don't do a lot of college football.
Yeah, I'm not a national
yeah.
talk show host. We
Right.
No, not only do we not do a lot of college football, we don't do any college football. It's not relevant in New York.
So don't send me tweets about Sal not knowing the schedule.
And by the way, I used to love college football when I was single and betting all the games. You get married, you have to give something up. I'm not giving football Sundays up, so it was college football. And like you said, I don't have to talk about it for work. So
right. All right. Now, Sal and I went to Saturday night's main event on Saturday. I'm going to save that for the end.
Okay.
Because I don't know how long that's going to go. So we'll cover some stuff and then we'll recap our night at the WWE Saturday night main event. There's some sports things going on that I found interesting. The Belichick thing to North Carolina. Now, I love that. I see people like they don't love it. What's your stance on that, even though we've established you don't care about college football?
No, but I love him, and
right.
I would now all of a sudden I have interest in North Carolina and the ACC because I want to see what he could do. I still prefer that Belichick were in the NFL, but I will follow him wherever he goes and keep an eye on it. I'm not going to be locked in every Carolina game, but sure as hell will be interested to see what they do record-wise in the ACC.
I don't know. I would have thought maybe my stance would be, yeah, I want to see him in the NFL. But I don't know. I kind of love this. I think the fact that the Falcons chose Raheem Morris over Bill Belichick. I mean, I know that's your team, but it's not your team, but it's your team. Whatever. I'm not saying it because it's the Falcons. I mean, it's just such an embarrassment. And then the Jets.
They're right. They turned him down. Did you watch?
But that's why the Jets are the Jets and the Falcons are the Falcons. That's it right there.
I know, but did you watch the show? Now, you know I love Belichick. Did you watch the show, The Dynasty, I think it's called, with the Patriots and Belichick behind the scenes?
The Apple one.
Yes. Did you see that yet?
So, of course, the one streaming service I decided to cancel in my life was the Apple TV, and I canceled it like a week or two before that came out. But I've heard very bad things about it. Like, it's all slanted towards Robert Kraft. They make Belichick looks like he had nothing to do with them winning all those Super Bowls.
Okay, well, that's what I was going to tell you. I watched it. I loved it. I highly recommend that you watch it because I know what you care about.
Right.
And yes, to me, it doesn't slant anything. They're interviewing Kraft and Brady and Belichick. And after watching that, to me, Bill Belichick would be unhireable as far as an NFL head coach. Now, I do think the Jets are different because he created a toxic working environment that just in today's game, you could dismiss it all you want, but it's the real. Guys weren't having fun. Edelman, Brady.
Yeah, but they won 6 Super Bowls.
Doesn't matter. They were not having fun. And this wasn't in the beginning. This was before the last one with the Rams. It should not be that toxic to where guys don't want to come to work and they were unhappy. You got to watch it. But I came across, and I love Belichick. I was like, I understand why he would not get hired by an NFL team ever again.
But that documentary got more criticism than praise because they basically tried to make it out like, Belichick had nothing to do with them winning those championships, and he was, I guess.
That's not fair. I don't think that's true. You should watch it for yourself and tell me what you think.
I don't have Apple TV.
Maybe I'll give you my passcode or we can figure that out, but you got to watch it.
They won 6 Super Bowls. I can't listen to any criticism. That's my take on it.
Right, but that doesn't mean, how'd they do at the end?
And, I mean, at some point it's going to run out.
Right, but my point is that
Brady was 40 years old. I mean, yes, he went on to win it with Tampa, but
yeah, exactly, and having fun. And to hear, and you know how it is now, where everybody's got to be the love you, coaches love their players and all that stuff. So I can see why Atlanta, as inept as they are, and by the way, they would be better with Belichick. There's no question about it.
Well, I also think. No, go ahead.
Well, I was just going to say, I can see why they would go with Morris over Belichick. I think the Jets are idiots because to me, the one team that should, with Rodgers in place and with that roster, should have hired or at least inquired about Belichick. But if you watch that show, I'd be curious to see what you think. I was a huge fan, still am, but it did not. He's just not a good. He's just not a good person. Good head coach, sure.
But if I watch, here's my thing on it. There's nothing that's going to be in there that's going to change one thing. He won 6 Super Bowls.
Right.
That's it. To me, and here's where I think the break maybe is, like we talked about, like those N years in New England. He wasn't a good GM at all. But at 1:00 on Sunday, you're insane if you don't want him on your sideline.
Yes, I agree. As far as a tactician, X's and O's, when to call a timeout, what decision, that, yes. But the other stuff, building a team and creating an environment that people want to be a part of, that is where I think he failed miserably at.
Oh, look what the Jets have built. I mean, they've been an embarrassment for their entire existence.
They should have hired him. I agree with that.
All right. Were you into, because I was so into this, the Adam Schefter-Doug Gottlieb Twitter
I don't
situation?
Like Doug Gottlieb. To me, I've never understood. Like, I don't think he's good at anything that he does. But yes, I did see the tweet. Yeah.
Schefter made sure everybody knows he's not good at coaching college basketball. That's for sure.
Right, but when you're not good, number one, and then you're arrogant on top of it, and you go after somebody, like, he deserved to get dunked on. So I did see that.
Well,
good for Schefter.
I can make the argument it's a win for Gottlieb, because if you get Adam Schefter to respond to you, that's a win. The guy's got like 80 trillion followers. But my favorite thing about that is, like, here's Adam Schefter, whose phone probably never stops buzzing. It's probably buzzing 24/7. He's got multiple phones, and he's taken the time to screenshot the Verizon League standings to tweet it out to basically massacre Doug Gottlieb.
I thought that was funny. Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, Schefter, I didn't know he had it in him. Did not know he had it in him. Did you see, I just saw this, so you might not have seen it, but the team deserves to be ripped to shreds. Did you see what the Charlotte Hornets did with the fan?
No.
So they do one of these, ridiculous, stupid, like halftime things where they bring some fan onto the court. Who the hell knows what for? Mm-hmm. And they give the fan a PS5 for participating in whatever they made him participate in for TV. The cameras go off. The bid is over. And they take the PS5 away from the kid and give him a jersey. Yeah. And the kid was like devastated.
Yeah, why would they do that?
Because I guess they were never intending to give the 13-year-old kid the game. It was for whatever bit they were doing.
Oh, that doesn't make any sense.
I mean,
and the kid didn't know about that?
This is the statement that the Hornets released after they got murdered for this. During last night's game, there was an on-court skit that missed the mark. The skit included bad decision-making and poor communication. Simply put, we turned the ball over and we apologize. We have reached out to the family and are committed to not only making it right, but exceeding expectations. We will be providing the fan with the PS5 that he should have taken home last night, along with a VIP experience to a future game. Our goal is and will remain to elevate the guest experience for every person that enters Spectrum Stadium and to show fans how much we appreciate their relentless support.
All right, so somebody in promotions or whatever came up with a boneheaded idea.
I mean, what are these teams doing?
Well, the Hornets did the right thing there after the fact. It's just that these people...
After they got killed.
And, well, because they didn't know about it. The higher-ups were like, what the hell? What are you guys doing?
Probably. Did you give me on Monday night Vikings, Bears, Falcons, Raiders? What was your viewing situation?
I watched enough of both of them because I had fantasy playoffs going on with each game.
Fantasy.
Yeah, I know. So I watched enough of both to get an idea. Did this thing get screwed up here? My phone just started ringing. Sorry about that.
That's okay.
It was some of the worst football, specifically with Desmond Ridder, who should not be in the NFL. He might actually be the worst pro quarterback I've ever seen in my life. The guy was afraid to throw the ball, and when he did, he threw it right into the hands of the Falcons. So, yeah, I watched enough of it. But to me, that was just disgusting, pathetic display of football, really, for both teams.
I'm blown away you even watched any of it. Fantasy.
And
fantasy
playoffs. It was fantasy, just so you know, like fantasy playoffs, and it came down to I had Minnesota's defense, my opponent had Atlanta, and we were tied. So it was like not just fantasy; it was really intense and involved both games. That's all.
Did you win or lose?
No, I lost because Ridder sucked, and the Raiders can't move the football, and they made the Falcons' defense look like the '85 Bears, and the Falcons suck even as worse with Kirk Cousins. Anyway, no, I lost. I was aggravated.
I just can't believe they showed that game on national television. I just can't.
Did you get into the Vikings and Bears?
Yes, because I bet over 26 points for the Vikings. Cha-ching.
And what about the other game? Nothing?
I had it on the second TV. I don't think I watched more than 2 plays. I couldn't do it. I couldn't do it. Yeah. What's your situation now? Sal might not be on next week, so give me your Christmas Day, 1 o'clock, 4 o'clock Netflix. Not watching either game.
I don't want to watch them because I don't want to be a slave to football. I saw Doggies rant about it. You and I talked about this when we first got that schedule release. Like, to me, it didn't make any sense why they would have those games at that time on the holiday. If it were a night game, different story. I'm going to act as if it's not even on. I want to enjoy
Chiefs,
the day.
Steelers, Texans, Ravens. You're going to pretend they don't exist.
Correct. They in my world on that day they do not exist.
So that you won't bet.
Well, both. That I won't bet and I won't be distracted.
Okay, good for you.
I can't think about it this way. If I were to tell my wife, sorry, I got to watch 2 games on Christmas Day when I spend all day Sunday. What are the other games this week? This Saturday as well?
Yes. Well, this Saturday you have the those teams flip flop. So you have the Texans play the Chiefs, and then the Steelers play the Ravens at 1 and 4:30.
So Saturday, Sunday, there's a Monday game, right?
Of course.
Okay. There's nothing Tuesday?
No.
Holy shit, Goodell. I mean, really, you could have forced the game in on Christmas Eve. What are you doing? And then Christmas Day, we have 2 games.
Let me see. There's probably good bowl games on that Tuesday.
And what about Thursday after the Christmas Day?
Yep, there is a game.
That starts what, week 17, I guess?
Yep.
Who's that game?
That game is...
Oh, no, I guess week 17 starts on Christmas. Right?
It's not a good one. Seahawks Bears on the 26th.
Right. So there's games Saturday. Really Thursday. Thursday, Saturday, Sunday, Monday, Wednesday, Thursday. Anything Friday or no?
No.
And then Saturday again, I'm assuming, right? They do Saturday, Sunday. I mean, that's just unacceptable.
It's beautiful. Yeah. It's beautiful. I love it.
At some point, their bubble is going to burst. I promise you at some point.
But see, we're using the word watch, and we need to clarify. There's a difference between ass in the chair, locked in, watch every play, and it's on the TV in the background. Maybe the sound's off, so you could do your Christmas with your family, mingle, open the presents. Mm-hmm. There's, that's at 1 o'clock on Christmas Day. I think it's going to be hard for a lot of people to be locked in every play in the chair, but it could be on in the background with no sound while you play, Rudolph the Red-Nosed Reindeer and I'm Dreaming of a White Christmas.
I just prefer it being a night game, and I don't want to even think about it on that day.
What a Scrooge. Did I tell you I had no Wi-Fi for 24 hours last week?
I knew about it. I don't know if you said it on the show or...
Oh, yeah, I texted you.
Yeah.
That I was having a disaster. Something was going on with it. I still can't believe the story that happened to me. I get home after doing some stuff in the afternoon, and the Wi-Fi's out. Okay. So what do? Unplug and plug it back in. So I go to do that, and I have my router in a TV cabinet type of thing.
Yeah.
So I open the TV cabinet so I can unplug it, and there's water on the bottom shelf of the TV cabinet where the router is. Mm. And now I'm freaking out because there's no water on the top shelf. There's no water on the shelf next to it. There's no water no water on the floor. The only place there is water is inside the TV cabinet where the router is, and there's no liquids in there. The only thing that's in there is batteries and remote controls. So I'm freaking out. It took me an hour to figure this out, but at one point, so then I just kept unplugging it and plugging it back in, trying to get it on. Then I decided I'm going to unplug the Ethernet wire. When I unplugged the Ethernet wire from the back of the router, water poured out.
Oh my God.
So now I'm like, how? Now that day I should have started the story with, in New York where I live, it was raining. It was a monsoon all day. So I'm like, then my niece was here. She took the router and she went like this, and the water was spraying all over. I'm like, what is going on? So call Verizon. They can't come till the next day. Basically,
that must have killed you.
Oh, Not easy. I mean, the phone still works, but I couldn't use my laptop. I couldn't work. I had to miss a day of work. Basically, the wire, so the Ethernet that goes into the router goes outside the house, and the wire goes all the way up to the roof where I don't know. The guy goes up there, and if you're on YouTube, you could see that crack? The wire was cracked. The rain was getting into that crack, down the wire into the router.
Wow.
24 hours, no Wi-Fi because of that.
That's bizarre.
The guy said he never saw anything like it before. I like that, though. That gives me a little adrenaline rush. Like, I had a problem no one else had.
Yeah, only you. That is unbelievable.
Yeah. So 24 hours of no Wi-Fi. So I would try to do that. I kept going to pick up my laptop. I'm like, oh, I can't use this. I can't use this. I could have hotspotted my phone, I guess, but I don't. That's a pain in the ass. Too old for that bullshit. All right. Speaking of too old, Saturday night's main event at the Nassau Coliseum. We need to do a full recap because we were both lucky enough to go.
Yes.
Phenomenal seats. I'll say, let me just say a couple of things. If you're one of the people who gives me the hard time about wrestling, just see you later. Go.
Check back next week.
Give me the 5 stars and check back next week. But if you're even on the fence, I will say this. If you have the capabilities, the financial means, however, to go attend a live show, I cannot recommend you do it enough just for the experience to see what this is like up close, because it really is remarkable what they do in the ring. Yeah. That's how I felt.
Yeah, I mean, we were lucky that we got hooked up and had great seats, and it was a great atmosphere. I loved it. I love the nostalgia of it. It is remarkable. And some people were saying, like, oh, you're going to sit that close, it's going to ruin it for you because you're going to see that it's quote unquote fake. It was quite the opposite, actually, for me. I don't think I've ever sat that close before, where you hear and you could feel the slaps on the chest,
right,
and see the kicks to the face or the falls on the mat. Like, you know, I get that it's a work, but my God, man, it is something to behold when you see it in person like that.
At one point during the Cody Rhodes Kevin Owens match, one of them, I forgot which one, but got thrown into the barricade where we were sitting, and the whole thing moved, scared the shit out of me.
Yeah, I was at the bathroom at that point. I missed it, of course.
Good job.
Yeah.
Sal, though, they brought out some of the legends to celebrate the return of Saturday Night's Main Event, which was a staple in the 80s, late 80s. And Sal saw Tito Santana, gave him a great arriba.
Oh, I yelled that out, right?
Oh, he gave you a good fist pump. That was great.
You had the best thing.
Yeah. So, oh, God. So, Cody Rhodes wrestles Kevin Owens. Cody's been on the pod, I think, 3 times. Love Cody. One of my favorite guests. And after the match, they did a lot of stuff after the show was over on NBC. Kevin Owens comes out after Cody beats him, gives him a pile driver. It's this package pile driver. I think it's some special pile driver. And poor Cody, cervical injuries, all this stuff. He gets put on a stretcher and gets wheeled out literally a foot in front of where Sal and I. And as he was on the stretcher getting rolled past me, Shelby, let the audience hear what I said to Cody Rhodes.
Cody, need you back on my podcast. Need you back on the pod.
All right. I sound deranged. I sound so deranged in that clip. The way I said podcast, like an adult, and wasn't even thinking to say SI Media podcast, Sports Illustrated podcast. Like, even if he had heard me, well, he's probably like, what fucking podcast is this loser talking about?
So can I tell you, now I took that video.
Yeah.
I posted the video in a wrestling figure collector group that I'm in on Facebook, because I figured those guys get a kick out of some of the shots that we had.
Think about that sentence for a minute, but go ahead.
Well, right. But here's the reason why it's relevant. So it's actually a group that's headed by Matt Cardona, Zack Ryder,
right,
whose wife won the U.S. title that night, Chelsea Green, right, and Brian Mars, my good buddy.
You were very excited about that, I must say.
Yeah, I was excited about seeing Chelsea because I know her a little bit from this group. Right. So I post that in there, and somebody writes underneath it, classy move, yelling to have him on your podcast, or something like that. prior to that, I didn't even know, I didn't even hear it. I didn't think anything of it. And then it made me think of, you, and then that's where I put it out on Twitter and all.
So wait, when the guy said classy move, yelling at the guy, you didn't know that was my voice?
No, I did. I tried to tell him. He might not have said classy move, but it was something like, go, nice job yelling at the guy where he looks like he's dead on the stretcher, tell him to get on your podcast. And I go, no. That's not me. That was Jimmy Traina, my buddy Jimmy Traina. And then I tweeted
and
that.
Also, Cody really doesn't have cervical injuries, just for the record.
Exactly. And he's also not dying.
Okay, but I will say this. 2 people, my buddy Gennaro Felice, who I love, and someone else did it to me yesterday, asked me, quote, was he really injured?
Yeah,
so they played it well.
I had multiple people say the same thing to me. And I'm like, nah.
They did it well. A+ for Cody's acting.
Yeah, I guess. Was he really injured?
If the guy was really injured, you think I'm going to say to him, can you come on my podcast? I mean, really?
Well, what if he was, but you didn't know?
You know when they're really injured.
Yeah.
I mean, give me a break.
I can't wait till you have Cody on again and you play that. Yeah.
I don't know. Even I don't know if I could pull that off.
That was tremendous, though.
The way I said podcast was like an animal. I'm not proud of that.
Need you on my podcast. Gotta get you on my podcast.
But you know what? You get caught up in the moment. It gets fun.
Yeah.
I'm disappointed I didn't say Sports Illustrated podcast. Because he could think anyone said that. I need him to know I said it. I'm the lunatic.
Right.
But yeah. But I think wait, the WWE, they put out such a great tweet too. Like, I don't know. Maybe this is why I know the wrestlers don't like it. The WWE doesn't like it. I know they don't love when you say real, because like we said, what we saw in person, it's scripted. It's not fake. It's scripted.
Right.
But WWE official Twitter breaking earlier today, it was confirmed that Cody Rhodes suffered cervical swelling and was kept overnight at a local hospital for observation. While x-rays were negative for a fracture, Rhodes has been officially diagnosed with axial compression of the cervical spine, as well as a cervical strain with spasm. So people bought all that. If he had that, you think they're going to wheel him right past us?
I mean, they have to get him out of the ring somehow.
Yeah, but they would have went through the regular ramp. Oh. All right, well, hopefully Cody comes back on the pod, and everyone should go see a live WWE event because it really is. Now, I'm going to say one thing here that has absolutely nothing to do with the WWE. Let me reiterate. This has nothing to do with the WWE or wrestling. The Nassau Veterans Memorial Coliseum on Long Island might be the worst building I've ever attended an event in. It took forever to get in. They don't have enough people working there. The what is it called? Are they called hallways or whatever? Like when you're trying to walk through the arena to your seat, just as you're like sardines packed into a can, no room to walk, couldn't move. The lines for concessions, forget about it. Madison Square Garden, there's never a problem. I've never had one issue at Madison Square Garden, whether it's for a concert, whether it's for a sporting event, never. You wait on the line for 2 minutes. You got to, put the phone and the keys, and they want to make sure you're not going to blow the building up because they never did that before 9/11. But now you have to do that everywhere you go. You get your stuff, you walk in, you go to your seat. The Nassau Coliseum should not be in existence if that's how the building is run.
Well, I think it's on its last legs, certainly. But the issue that I had, it took forever to get in, and it was
freezing.
Effing freezing.
Yeah.
Freezing. So,
right.
Yeah.
Madison Square Garden, I no issue.
Yeah.
Good thing. I mean, what even is at the Nassau Coliseum anymore? Do they even do concerts? The last thing I saw there was an Elton John concert, maybe like 3 years ago.
Maybe like monster trucks or something.
Oh, that I had like 3 panic attacks trying to walk to my seat. It's ridiculous. But the event was great. And I hope Cody makes a full recovery.
Me too.
Comes on the podcast. I mean, When I saw that, my first thought was Cody wants the holidays off. He's been working like the guy works like an animal ever since even before he won the title, but since he won the title, the guy does everything. He's everywhere. But I said, listen, I want to be home for Christmas and New Year's. I'll break my neck, and there you go.
Love it.
All right, Sal, we probably won't see you next week, so have a Merry Christmas.
Yes, Merry Christmas.
Enjoy not watching the football.
I will.
Is your tree up?
It's up. It's not done yet.
Real or fake?
Real.
Okay, so you won that bottle.
Yeah.
When are you going to decorate it? Christmas is in a week.
I didn't tell you how I got the tree.
No, I didn't even know you got the tree.
Well, I was supposed to get it over the weekend. We didn't have to do it. A call.
Right, I saw you Saturday. You said you still didn't get the tree.
Right. A guy that we brought, Mitchell and Fort Lee, who's a caller to my show I became friendly with.
Yeah.
He offered to go pick the tree up and get it and drop it off at my house, so he did that.
You're kidding me right now. No, please tell me you're fucking kidding me right now.
No, yesterday. And then I got home.
Hold on.
Yeah.
Hold on. You had a caller go pick up your Christmas tree and bring it to your house?
Yeah,
Is this what you're telling me
now? But yeah.
Is this what you're telling me?
Yeah, I couldn't do it. He offered, and I was like, you know what?
I cannot believe you dropped this bomb on me 27 minutes into this segment because I have about 50 questions and comments to make about
You
this.
met Mitchell, right? Saturday night, do you remember him?
That's not the point.
Oh, okay.
You had someone pick up your Christmas tree and deliver it.
Yeah. He offered. I was like, all right, I'll Venmo you. He picked it out, sent me a picture. I was like, yeah, whatever looks good.
So was he your butler?
I was like, I did ask him, I was like, can you get my wife a birthday card while you're out as well? That's coming up on Thursday. I need to get that.
I don't even believe what I'm hearing.
Well, that one I'm joking with. Although if he would have offered, I mean.
Wink, wink.
Yeah.
So he delivered your Christmas. So let me get this straight now. It gets even worse.
Yeah.
The guy delivered your Christmas tree. Just a complete and utter disgrace that you don't pick out your tree. A complete and utter disgrace. And you have a daughter. She should be part of the experience of picking out the tree. So he delivers your Christmas tree. And now you're telling me a week before Christmas, it's still not decorated.
Well, I mean, he just delivered it yesterday.
Oh.
Yeah.
Okay.
I just put it. It was delivered yesterday. So when I got home from work, I put it up into the stand, put some water in it tonight, maybe put the lights on, and then,
Maybe by Christmas it'll be decorated.
Yeah, right.
Maybe the lights today, the decorations tomorrow.
We're a little behind this year, yeah.
What are we going to do with the lights? White or colored? Who won that? Who won that battle?
No, colored. Come on.
All right, so you won that battle. Your wife won the real tree battle. Okay. You had someone who was a caller deliver the Christmas tree to your house. I just can't wrap my brain around this. I just can't. All right.
It was helpful.
All right.
Thank you, Mitch.
All right, Sal.
All right.
Have a Merry Christmas and enjoy the tree that got delivered.
Thank you.
All right.
All right.
Take it easy. All right. Bye. All right. My many thanks to Mike Tirico. My thanks to Sal Licata. My thanks to you, as always, for listening. If you missed any recent episodes of SI Media with Jimmy Traina, make sure you check it out. Sean McDonough from ESPN was on the pod last week. Brian Curtis from The Ringer 2 weeks ago. Kyle Brandt from Good Morning Football. Roman Reigns from the WWE. Burke Magnus, president of ESPN. Jim Nantz, Tony Romo, all recent guests. So if you've missed any of those, give them a listen, especially here if you have some time off over the holiday season. Would love for you to catch up. And if you're not a subscriber, it would be great if you became a new subscriber. Give me a little Christmas present because it helps tremendously if you subscribe. All right, we will be back next week with a fresh episode with Andrew Perloff and Peter Schrager for our annual year-end edition of SI Media with Jimmy Traina. So make sure you check that out. Merry Christmas to all of you who will celebrate that holiday this week and enjoy the time. And again, hit that subscribe button. All right, we'll see you next week. Merry Christmas. Happy holidays. Stay safe. Take care.